Puritan Age. The manner in which the salvation of the soul is to be sought, by Jonathan Edwards. The building of the ark, which was enjoined upon Noah, that he and his family might be saved, was a great undertaking. The ark of the building was a vast size, the length of it being 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A cubit, till of late, was by learned men reckoned to be equal to 1.5 feet of our measure. But lately some learned men of our nation have traveled into Egypt and other ancient countries and have measured some ancient buildings here which are of several thousand years standing, and of which ancient histories give us the dimensions in cubits, particularly the pyramids of Egypt, which are standing entire at this day. By measuring these, and by comparing the measure in feet with ancient accounts of their measuring cubits, a cubit is found to be almost 2 and 20 inches.
Colonial period. Ye governor of ye colony, William Bradford. From my many years young and days of youth, God did make known to me his truth, and called me from my native place, for to enjoy the means of grace. In wilderness he did me guide, and in strange lands for me provide. In fears and wants, through weal and woe, a pilgrim passed I to and fro. Oft left and them who did I trust, how vain it is to rest on dust. A man of sorrows I have been, and many changes I have seen. Wars, want, peace, plenty have I known, and some advance, others thrown down. The humble poor, cheerful and glad, rich, discontent, sour and sad. The Revolutionary Age. Age of Reason by Thomas Paine. It has been my intention for several years past to publish my thoughts upon religion. I am well aware of these difficulties that attend the subject, and from that consideration had reserved it to a moved advanced period of life. I intended it to be the last offering I should make to my fellow citizens of all nations, and that at that time when the purity of the motive that induced me to it could not admit of any question, even by those who might disapprove the work.
Early National Period. The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. Once upon a midnight jury, while I pondered weak and weary over many a quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded, nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door, "only this and nothing more." I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had thought to borrow from my books surcease of sorrow. Sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels Lenore nameless here forevermore.
The Enlightenment. Death is a fisherman. Death is a fisherman the world we see. His fish pond is, and we the fishes be. His net some general sickness, however he is not so kind as other fishermen speak. For it they take one of the smaller fry, they throw him in again, he shall not die. But death is sure to kill all he can get, and all is fish with him that comes to net.
Romanticism by Concord Hymn by Ralph Waldo Emerson. By the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmer stood, and fired the shot heard round the world. The foe long since in silence slept, alike the conqueror silent sleeps. And time the ruined bridge has swept down the dark stream which seaward creeps. On this green bank by this soft stream we set today of votive tone, that memory may their deed redeem when like our sires our sons are gone. Spirit that made those spirits dare to die and leave their children free, bid time and nature gently spare the shaft we raised to them in need. Transcendentalism. Song of Myself by Walt Whitman. I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. I too am not a bit tamed, I am too untranslatable. I harbor for good or bad, I permit to speak at every hazard. Nature without check with original energy, and I sing the body electric. To stop in company with the rest at evening is enough. To be surrounded by beautiful, curious, breathing, laughing flesh is enough. To pass among them, or to touch anyone, or rest my arm ever so lightly around his or her neck for a moment. What is this, then? I do not ask any more delight. I swim in it as in a sea. There is something in staying close to men and women and looking on them, and all in the contact and odor of them that pleases the soul well. All things please the soul, but these please the soul well. Realism. At Home from Church by Sarah Jewett. The lilacs lift in generous bloom, their plumes dear old-fashioned flowers. Their fragrance fills the still old house where I left alone. I count the hours. High in the apple tree the bees are humming, busy in the sun. An idle robin cries for rain, but once or twice, and then is done. The Sunday morning quiet holds in heavy slumber all the street, while from the church just out of sight, behind the elms, comes slow and sweet. The organs drone, the voices faint, that sing the quaint, long meter hymn. I somehow feel as if shut out for some mysterious temple dim and beautiful with blue and red and golden lights from windows high, where angels in the shadows stand and earth seems near the sky. The daydream fades, and so I try again to catch the tune that brings no thought of temple nor of priest, but only of a voice that sings. Naturalism. To Build a Fire by Jack London. Day had broken, cold and gray, exceedingly cold and gray, when the man turned aside from the main Yukon Trail and climbed the high earth bank, where a dim and little traveled trail led eastward through the fat spruce timberland. It was a steep bank, and he paused for a breath at the top, excusing the act to himself by looking at his watch. It was 9 o'clock. There was no sun nor hint of sun. Though there was not a cloud in the sky, it was a clear day, and yet there seemed an intangible pale over the face of things, a subtle gloom that made the day dark, and that was due to the absence of sun. This fact did not worry the man. He was used to the lack of sun. It had been days since he had seen the sun, and he knew that a few days more must pass before the cheerful orb due south would just peep above the skyline and dip immediately from the view.
Imagining. A Fairy Tale by Evie Lowell. On winter nights beside the nursery fire, we read the fairy tale while glowing coals builded in pictures. There, before our eyes, we saw the vaulted hall of tracery stones. Uprear itself the distant ceiling hung, with pendant stalactites like frozen vines, and all along the walls at intervals, curled upward into pillars, roses climbed, and ramped and were combined, and clustered leaves divided where there appeared a laughing face. The voyage seemed to rustle in the wind. A silent murmur craved and still, gray, still. Modern age. A late walk. When I go up through the mowing field, the headless aftermath, smooth laid like scratch with the heavy dew, half closes the garden path. And when I come to the garden ground, the whir of sober birds, up from the tangled and withered leaves, is sadder than any words. A tree beside the wall stands bare, but a leaf that lingers brown. Disturbed, I doubt not, but my thought comes softly rattling down. I am not far from my growing forth, by picking the faded blue off the last remaining aster flower, to carry again to you, by Robert Frost. And that is the history of marriage.